Hi, I'm actor Ian Champion, and welcome to History of Horror Cinema, my podcast series devoted to the good, bad, and the ugly of horror movie history. Please don't forget to like what you hear and hit subscribe. I have such sights to show you. The Phantom Creeps, 1939. In 1939, Universal released The Phantom Creeps, the 112th of their Saturday morning film serials made for the cinema. Although Columbia and Republic Studios were as well known for their output, Universal produced more than any other, 137 in total, going right back to the silent days with Lucille Love, Girl of Mystery in 1914. The film serial, or serial film, was a serialized story broken up into 12 to 20 episodes shown sequentially each week at the same movie house preceding the main feature, B-picture westerns, or Saturday afternoon children's matinees. They had simplistic plots, ideal for enthralling younger audiences, and a built-in hook in the form of the cliffhanger ending to each installment that placed the hero or heroine in sensational danger. This then brought audiences back to find out how the main character escaped from that fiery car, plane, spaceship crash. Part of the fun was the blatant cheating. I recall a cliffhanger from Flash Gordon, where Flash is lowered into a burning pit up to his waist, but then in the next episode is freed before he can descend that low. Serials were cheap to produce. They were shot quickly, focused on a small cast, and usually kept to low-budget genres, such as the western, jungle adventures, and crime stories. The relatively costlier science fiction of Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers were the money-spinning exception. Universal were not above recycling their music or stock footage to cut costs further. The Phantom Creeps reuses music cues from the Frankenstein films, as well as film sequences from The Invisible Ray, actually of Boris Karloff digging for the unearthly meteor that provides some backstory to both films. Bela Lugosi, who co-starred with Karloff in the latter, took the lead in the serial as the evil Dr. Zorka. A capital Z in the surname is always a dead giveaway for evil, thus blurring the genre lines between crime, sci-fi, and tinges of horror. It also highlighted the gradual downturn in his career trajectory, as we shall see. The Phantom Creeps had the benefit of a creative team behind it with a wealth of experience in this medium. Ford Beebe and Saul H. Goodkind between them had directed, written, and edited the Flash Gordon sequels, Buck Rogers, many other serials, and quickie westerns. The screenwriters, George H. Plimpton and Basil Dickey, with Mildred Barish, had already written many Universal film serials. Overall story credit went to Willis Cooper, who had an illustrious background creating his own horror radio series Lights Out, and would go on to write the last quality Frankenstein picture, Son of Frankenstein. Lugosi's Zorka the Hungarian is the familiar horror trope of the underappreciated scientist. They called me a fool, equipped with a beleaguered henchman monk, Jack C. Smith, and a nifty line in crafting inventions of great interest to the American wartime government, since they can be weaponized. The first one we see is more mirthsome than fearsome, an 8-foot servant robot of concertina arms topped with an enormous grimacing head, resembling a cross between a vengeful temple idol and a parade float. There's also a rubber spider, impregnated with a powerful meteorite fragment element irresistibly drawn by remote control to a magnetic disc exploding near its victim. Understandably keen to persuade Zorka to sign his creations over to Uncle Sam is his former partner Dr. Mallory, a wooden Edwin Stanley, reasoning that otherwise another unscrupulous nation may get their hands on his technology. Zorka, though, is refreshingly free of patriotism. That's why they shall pay me dearly for it. Even his quavering wife Anne, Dora Clement, cannot appeal to his humanity. In secret, Zorka triumphantly tests his crowning achievement of a devisualizer invisibility belt. Through this, he will begin his rise as a supervillain, once he and Monk have bravely scarpered through a hidden tunnel in his garage. Thus the scene is set pitting Zorka's machinations as the Phantom for his spy paymasters against stalwart Robert Kent, with Regis Toomey as his sidekick Lieutenant Jim Daly, and Dorothy Arnold as the intrepid blonde newspaper reporter Jean Drew. A cat-and-mouse game ensues over possession of the catalyst meteorite fragment powerful enough to induce suspended animation. Another horror film alumnus is the identity of Jarvis, the foreign head of the spy ring. He is Edward Van Sloan, channeling his bookish heroism from Universal's triple whammy of Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Mummy against type in the service of dastardly intrigue. Sans glasses for unacademic villainy, he uses the International School of Languages as a cover for coded messages to their foreign agents. The plot of The Phantom Creeps moves along at a rattling pace even when watched as a near 4-hour compilation. Careful never to pause too long for close analysis, what unfolds is a Groundhog Day loop of repeated planes, trains, and automobile-related jeopardy. Miles are covered with speed, but seemingly across the same stretches of location roads, all the better to save on interior sets. The potential interchangeability between government agents and spy goons, who all sport fedoras and suits, is solved by giving the evil henchmen pencil moustaches. The format of the show is, however, notable for one unique storytelling concept: the use of a scrolling text forward at the beginning of each installment, summarizing the story so far. This, along with the various irises and wipes, the optical effect transition from one scene to the next, would become much imitated, most famously homaged by Star Wars and Indiana Jones. As we spin round the circular racetrack of the plot, one highlight in Chapter 6, The Iron Monster, sees Zorka add to his weaponry with an oddly complicated premise: an invisible gas whose dispersal over a subject lies dormant, needing the criminal to then blast it fatally with a Flash Gordon-style Z-ray gun. This two-stage fiendishness could surely be simplified to just one of the devices doing the whole job. Can such sadistic over-engineering become a black market bestseller? Come back next week and find out. There's even one of those cheeky cliffhanger cheat resolutions leading into Chapter 10, Phantom Footprints, where Bob Daly grapples with the baddies on board a speedboat while Jean Drew at the wheel throws up her arms as they crash into a buoy. We aren't even shown the concealed nick-of-time evacuation. Instead, the director just opens the new scene with them swimming to safety. As the forces of good close in on Zorka, the producers go for broke, intercutting climactic sequences of him in a biplane, dropping miniature bombs with real-life footage of ground, sea, and air explosions of his innocent targets. Whilst these were intended merely to give young thrill-seeker moviegoers sensational production values without expense, the most audacious and tasteless example actually qualifies as snuff footage. The escapist laughs do die in the throat somewhat with the realization of the provenance of one of the clips. This was their use of the shocking Hindenburg airship disaster newsreels of May 6, 1937, in which 35 of the 97 souls on board lost their lives as the ship burst into flames whilst struggling to anchor itself to a mooring mast in New Jersey. At least there is the moral consequence of seeing Zorka's aeroplane head into a fatal tailspin, a seeming metaphor for the gradual plummet of Lugosi's own career in the following years, with only Son of Frankenstein as a brief rescuing of the gear stick. Thanks for listening, and if you like what you've just heard, don't forget to click so, and please hit subscribe. If you build it, they will come.